Well. We're back. Cold night in Stark Vegas, if you will. Dogs win 45-19. As always, welcome to the DGD podcast. Robert Reynolds, Juan Daniels, Kobe Pierce. Listen, we're going to review the Mississippi State game. The SEC championship game has now been set. Um, and we're going to bring out the updated DGD CFP poll. All right. So we got a lot to cover. And
And officially, just went official on Twitter, the Georgia Bulldogs will be the first reigning champion since 1998 to not have a night game at home. Georgia Tech will be a noon kickoff for the last game of the year.
the unfortunate thing was we expected this from a million light years away. Um, so there is that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess let's do this. Let's start off with that, Kobe. Since you break the news, what are your thoughts on Georgia not getting a night game?
I think that it just shows how excited we all are in some way or another that we're moving away from the CBS deal. I mean, it's going to push ESPN to, that 7 o'clock game will be the game of the week. I think that starts in maybe like 2024, 2025, something like that.
I think ne- I think next year is when that stops.
I think next year's the last year of CBS, so that'd be 2023. So that means 2024 would be ESPN starting maybe. But still, anyways, it just will push it to that CBS game of the week won't be at 3:30. It'll be the ESPN game of the week at 7 or 7:30. So there'll definitely be more incentive to having night games if you're a good team. There won't be any more like Florida Vanderbilt's on SEC Network or SEC Network Plus at 7 o'clock. And it's because nobody wants to watch it, so we're putting them there. But like Georgia, Tennessee, that everybody wants to watch it at 3:30 because that's their primetime slot. It's kind of like, it's like the Big Ten that does noon kickoff. Like, how terrible would that be? Your game of the week's at noon, or in their case, sometimes 11 a.m. depending on the time zone. So
Yeah, no, I think moving prompt if the Georgia Tennessee game had 13 million viewers at a 3:30 slot, just imagine what it would have done at 7. Just imagine. I think that's telling, if you will. Juan, what are your thoughts on this no night game situation?
I'm the same. If it's going to be prime time, 3:30 is going to be, that time that you really want to get excited about. A lot of times, me personally, I'm taking a nap around 12 o'clock, just so I can get ready for that 3:30 prime time game, and then maybe if there's a big time game later on. So, and it's Georgia Tech. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Let's just go ahead and get this done so we can get prepared to go to the SEC championship.
Nah, yeah, no. Oh man, ain't it crazy though? If you look at this, we're going to talk more about this Wednesday, but after Mississippi State, obviously Georgia clinches the SEC East, to the dismay of Tennessee Vol fans. However, when you look at the remaining two games for Georgia, um, it's promising. It's very promising. Um, you have Kentucky that just lost to Vanderbilt. Congratulations, Vanderbilt, by the way. Congratulations. 3 years, and you finally get your first conference win. Congratulations. That's awesome.
against the future number one overall pick, Will Levis, of all people.
All the poetic justice is real there. The JOGG gets her naps too because she's old. Yeah, fair enough.
A noon kick in Utah is tough. That's like a 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock kick.
She's probably already out doing yard work at that point. At that point in time,
Sewing, using her new sewing machine, that type of stuff.
knitting.
Yes, knitting.
Anyways, let's go ahead and let's do this. 45-19. And honestly, I think it's interesting with that score because at halftime it was not that it was actually close. Excuse me, 17-14 at half, right? Georgia kind of played sloppy in that first half and then just proceeded to hit the reset button and dominate, if you will. Um, overall takeaways. Juan, I know you were out in Utah, but what were your takeaways from this game Saturday?
Again, just being that team that does what they're supposed to do. Georgia's now proven to be that second half team. It's cold. You're playing an away game. Those cowbells are probably crazy, but at the end of the day, Georgia does exactly what they're supposed to do. I think every game that they play right now is going to be a statement game to say, hey, we're not playing around. You may hang with us in the first half, which is, again, you look at the the Kent State game, or the games that look like, oh wow, it's been a struggle. That first half was not great, but once they get their feet settled and everything is settled in, then here comes that Georgia machine, you're just mowing you down.
One of the key takeaways for me though, one was we turned the ball over as well twice. But I'm gonna defend Stetson Bennett here. All right, so there's two passes. One, he had Ladd McConkey deep. He had him deep. If you watch it, you saw he had him deep. His arm gets hit, and if you have any kind of quarterback experience, you understand that obviously any out interference there with your arm, obviously getting hit, ultimately that's on you. But at the same time, I'm not going to be the one to harp on that too much, right? The second interception was kind of just a wild interception where it basically the defender slaps it, but then it falls into the chest of Cedric Van Pran. So the guy just takes it off of his chest. Like two funky, weird type interceptions, right? Like I'm not going to be sweating over that, even though, if you look at any other team outside of Georgia, it seems like two turnovers, this game is going to be close. Georgia just proceeds to, like I said, win by 26 on the road, for that matter. So, man, it's interesting to see that Georgia can still kind of, have those turnovers and still be as dominant as we've seen Saturday. Kobe, I'm going to turn it over to you, though. What are your takeaways from this game?
I think, I think people forget you're really dealing with 18, 19, 20, 21, Stetson's 25, whatever you want to call it, kids. You played an emotional home game last weekend against a team that everybody doubted you, and you really went out there and dominated that game. And you roll into Mississippi State. It's cold. It's at night. Hostile environment with the cowbells. I think the biggest takeaway for me in the first half is, Kirby is still showing that he is growing and evolving and letting Monken kind of take the reins at times, because, old school Kirby, when we had the ball to end the half, would have ran the clock, bled the clock, and would have never punted that ball. And if you had to ask him right now, I'm sure he would have told you, yeah, we probably should have bled the clock and never even punted that ball. And you're looking at this game probably would have been 45-12 had you have bled that clock properly. It's just part of it sometimes. It's part of that. We want to go score. We want to take this risk. Well, we took this risk, and then we have a below average punt, whatever you want to call it. You give up the big punt return, and you go into half closer than it should have been, and they get to score one more touchdown than they should have. I mean, this game could have easily been, 45-13 or worse. At the end of the day, you can't expect us to play perfect every half of every game we play in. I mean, you dominated Tennessee from start to finish. You dominated Mississippi State the moment, the second half started. You're going to dominate Kentucky, probably 3 out of 4, maybe 4 out of 4 quarters, and you're going to have your way with Georgia Tech, however you want to look at that. I think that some of our fans are worried that you haven't always put together this 4-quarter complete game since Oregon. But, at some point, you're so dominant in the second half, it doesn't matter.
I think you bring up a good point, right? That clock management, I think it was interesting. But I think one of my takeaways for this as well, though, is, we see the punt return touchdown, and it honestly drives home the importance of every aspect of the game. Kirby's aspect is to dominate the entire game. Everybody looks at it from a quarters perspective. Why don't we just look at it from a third? You have offense and defense, which I think we handled that for the most part. But the special teams, it costs us, right? It costs us 7 points. Moving forward, I genuinely think that you're going to see an emphasis on the special teams. People can call that clock management, for what it's worth. And at the time, I get it, but in retrospect, I think we knew it was a matter of time before Georgia just separated themselves, which is, if you look at it, it's a vast contrast from our last road night game, right? Everybody wants to keep harping on Missouri still. But what I saw Saturday was a completely different team when given the kind of same scenario, if you will, right? Hostile environment, night game on the road. Now, I don't think Missouri was cold, but it was cold. It was in the 30s during that game. So playing football in the cold is not fun. But the fact that you've seen Georgia pull away, dominate, assert their will on the offensive line and moving the ball offensively, being extremely physical defensively, I think that kind of to me, I feel like it kind of broke the will of Mississippi State. But the coverage and the tackling and things like that, like when it gets cold, it's not fun. But I think Georgia's built differently than most in a sense where you're so comfortable being physical that it doesn't matter. You see what I mean? Like you can be cold and it won't matter. Like they just do what they do. Um, I guess the next question I do want to ask, and Juan, I'll start with you first. What was a pleasant surprise for you offensively, or not even offensively throughout the game, I should say?
Just the passing yards was great. To almost have 300 yards passing, and it's cold. It's a miserable day to be passing the ball. Those are days that you just want to ground and pound. But for us to have almost 300 yards of passing, receivers that are open, Ladd McConkey did a great job of catching the football. Some great passes out to the tight ends. I just thought that was great. That was a plus because those are going to be the things that we're going to need to have happen for these teams that are going to come out and try to stop the run. If I'm kind of, looking at a national championship, if we match up against, say, a Michigan is very, very good stopping the run. So we're going to have to be able to throw the ball in any condition. And so for us to throw the ball almost 300 yards in those conditions, I thought that was great. That was a very pleasant surprise.
You're 100% right. Kobe, what are you pleasantly surprised taking away from Saturday's win?
I just think you just always have to be pleasantly surprised in your offensive coordinator and his ability to get a variety of your best players active in the just in the offense. I mean, you look at Ladd has 70 yards rushing and a touchdown and 70 yards receiving and a touchdown. That's just the kind of things like, that's the things you've seen him do with Bowers, you've seen him do with Ladd. I mean, the things eventually, like if A.D. Mitchell gets back, your passing game to him is going to look completely different. I really think that you've had an ability to throw the ball to Ladd a lot because teams are trying to take away Bowers. Darnell had a good game, 5 catches, his first touchdown on the year. The more he starts to explore those guys and say, okay, we can't force the ball to Bowers 10 times this game because they're double covering him. We have to still do similar things with other people, though. Seeing Ladd being able to run the ball and do things like that. And then, like you said, it's a cold game. Nobody likes all of a sudden it was warm in Athens all week. It's in the 70s, maybe the 60s. All of a sudden Saturday you get over to Starkville and it's 38. I mean, you can't just be prepared for that. Kirby's going to be like, we haven't worn sleeves all week, so you can't wear sleeves today. Small things like that people don't even realize. So, and at the beginning of the year, if I'd have told you that between Florida, Tennessee, and Mississippi State that we were 3-0 and dominated all 3 games, I feel like any fan would take that. There are like nitpicky things, but mean, you've really looked extremely well offensively in all 3 games.
You really have to tip your hat to Coach Schumann and Coach Muschamp here. You bring up those 3 games, and in those 3 games, right? Obviously, this is a part of our gauntlet, or I wouldn't say gauntlet, but our tough stretch, right? Out, on the back half of that bye week, and each team, right? You face a different, uh, I guess you could say, a set of problems, if you will, offensively, right? So the game plan for each of these 3 games were completely different. You really didn't see any type of commonalities between these 3. And for the defense to go out there and execute it to the level that they did, you like I said, you tip the hat off to Schumann and Coach Muschamp, right, for executing or orchestrating these game plans. But the defense, to be as young and what people want to say is young and obviously not as experienced as last season, to go out there and execute it to that level for these 3 games, to me that's remarkable. That really is remarkable. You've seen, Smile Munden had himself a game. Malachi Starks was doing fine. Um, you know, but at the same time, you look at the guy like Jalen Walker was in. Jalen Carter had himself a game, right? So all these guys, right? There's no one in particular that really, was like the alpha male, right? It's just a collective group that swarms to the ball, and no name defense, right? It's becoming a recurring, I guess you could say, occurrence. So for me, I think the 3 games that you talked about, having different game plans for each and executing to the level that we did, to me, that's what really stood out to me. I mean, offensively, yes. Juan, you talked about the passing in the cold conditions. That's not fun to do. From a receiver, Juan, this. It hurts. It hurts when you catch the ball. So to be able to go there and execute to the level that we did offensively and defensively for that matter, I think overall you're looking at this game as, you have to take away everything for the most part in a positive light. But I think the question now is game balls. Who's your game ball going to?
Man, I would probably have to say, if I'm thinking about it, obviously I would give it to Lad McConkey. I mean, Lad McConkey, came out, ran. Yes, I will definitely give it to him. Coming out that second half, that was huge. Like, that was a big time. I mean, it's 17-12. It's a little bit shaky. Everybody's kind of like, and then he just comes out there, explodes, and then from there the game just got busted wide open.
That's a good point. I mean, when you look at that touchdown open in the half, that was the moment where Georgia fans needed that, because like we had talked about, right? The clock management led to them getting a touchdown right before the half on the special teams punt return. So to go out there and execute that play and really just take the crowd out of it to start the half for the rest of the game, that was a game changing moment, if you will. Kobe, who's your game ball going to?
I'm gonna do one for each side. I always like to just Darnell Washington getting the big touchdown finally, getting in the end zone, just feeling like, I mean, we all understand, and people that follow football really closely understand, but he does a lot of thankless work, and that's what Kirby always preaches on. Is anytime you see Ladd running for a touchdown or Brock, you never always see that dirty work Darnell's doing, blocking somebody. I mean, my man against Tennessee absolutely disrespected a corner in open field, blocked him to his back with one push. I mean, if you're a GM, you're just drooling at the fact that this guy can do the things he can do. And then Jalen Carter, in what really to me has been his healthiest game since Missouri, just kind of showed you why he's that bona fide top 5, maybe even top 3 pick. And he had a sack. He had 2 tackles for loss. I think he had 7 total tackles as a defensive lineman. And that's just the kind of player that, if as Georgia starts getting deeper in this season, the healthier he gets, if you get back A.D. Mitchell and the healthier he gets, I mean, you're looking at the SEC championship could be your healthiest game you've played since Oregon. You just have to start getting more and more excited about that.
I've got two, but I'm going on the same side of the ball. You ready for this? First one, Kearis Jackson. My man had the game of the season for him Saturday night. What Juan? I want to ask your opinion on this. You probably know where I'm going with that catch where the acrobatic catch.
Yep.
That looked extremely difficult, and I'm sure as a receiver that is not easy to do.
Well, it's not as hard as you think it is. I mean, because again, it's a kind of like a back shoulder kind of fade looking ball. So he just basically just had to read it, but he skied over that guy and just jumped and and snagged that ball. And I kind of liked, how he stepped over and looked at him, kind of looked down. And then of course he's looking into the camera and everybody's just getting really hype. And, that's what he needed. He needed something like that. And I think that the Georgia offense kind of needed something like that. We've seen from the Blaylocks, we've seen from, Arian Smith, but when you have a stable of receivers that can just come out and do things like that, I mean, it's going to be tough to just, lock down one person without the other person kind of dominating you.
I felt like the DB in that play played it about as good as you can. I just think Kearis just made the play, which that's just a testament to Kearis being a playmaker. But I think I want to give my second game ball to Kendall Milton, coming back off the injury and finally getting that bump your head on the goalpost run. I've been talking about this for most of the season. Like if you go back and you watched, Kendall, you would see that he was patient and analyzing the holes and the gaps that he needed to go through. But it seemed like he was always getting hit, tackled at the shoestring tackled or whatever. That didn't happen. And he finally, you saw it right to the final touchdown pretty much where he just scampers in from, I think, like 30 yards out or something like that. A quick, if that was, I think it was like a quick 30-yarder. But, like, to me, it was just one of those things where, like, you hadn't heard much of the running game. And to me, I think that's going to be key moving forward. Georgia, obviously we pass more than we run, but we still assert ourselves on trying to run the ball and running it effectively. If you remember, in 2020, we ran the ball for 8 yards, 8 solo, 8 singular. So for me, seeing that run when for the most part most of the night, things have been kind of limited, if you will, was a breath of fresh air for me. But obviously that kind of redemption story ties into it as well, where he's been limited with injury, I should say, excuse me. But for him to sit there, come back, and just boom, run right into it, it was beautiful to see. So those are our game balls. Joel brings up a good question here. She says, it seems like Mississippi came to play. But after the beginning of the second half, they knew they were done, and it was awesome. Yeah, I think, Juan, you talked about that Lad McConkey run, and like I said, I think that was the beginning of the end, if you will. Moving forward, that momentum, after that touchdown, really it swung the momentum for the defense as well, if you think about it. Things got a lot harder for Mississippi State moving the ball, right? They would get a few first downs after that, but it was very hard. And then they started going for fourth downs and even fourth and shorts, right? Fourth and short yardage situations, and still weren't completing and getting the first down. There was one in particular, I want to say it was like a 4th and 2. And I think it was Malachi or Javon Bullard or somebody, I forgot who it was. Open field tackle and got the guy's legs and made him fly into the air. He ended up short. That's a big play, because if that tackle's not made, he's in the end zone, I'm pretty sure. So, hats off to the defense again for just making plays. Tackling again has been one of our strong points, it feels like, especially in the secondary, right? And to me, you look at the coverage, we were able to play man and mix it in with some zone. And to me, that's so relieving, because, like I said, if we want to look back in 2020, we were petrified of playing any type of man coverage. The one time that we did, we got cooked for a 65-yard touchdown. Now you start to see guys playing, like I said, more man in there, and that's a testament to Kirby trusting the defensive backs. And if you're Georgia, you're loving that.
Well, that's a testament, I think, to what you've seen the past 3 recruiting cycles, including this one upcoming. You've signed the best DB class 2 years ago, possibly the best DB class ever a year ago, and then are pushing to sign some good DBs again this year. And you've lost some good DBs along the road to the transfer portal that are still playing places. He definitely is putting emphasis on being able to play man coverage with good safeties and good DBs, and he has that team now that he wants, that he maybe didn't in 2019, 2020 kind of time where he did have his questions.
I'm just saying right now, Georgia fans, you probably are aware of this. Soak in the 3 years of Malachi Starks. Please do. That's all I'm going to say. It's that simple. I do want to transition though, because with the victory, Georgia clinches the SEC East. And after games taking place Saturday, the SEC championship game now is set, and it's not who you think it is. Y'all know this by now. Typically, we're looking at a Bama-Georgia matchup, but that is not the case. So now you're looking at Georgia taking on Brian Kelly, right? Brian Kelly and the LSU team. First year under the program and tutelage of Brian Kelly there in Baton Rouge, and you're already in Atlanta. And hats off to that. And hats off to me, because I think I was the closest one evaluating this before the season. I'm just going to let y'all know that. All right.
Called it. LSU won.
Now, I had him going second, so I was at least the closest. I was even wrong. I had Bama winning the West, but I gotta soak it in a little bit, man, because my picks have been dead last.
On paper, who wouldn't have had Bama winning it though? I guess is the.
Now, to that point though, this is why games are played on the field. However, with that being said, obviously now you take a look at Georgia versus LSU matchup, and to me, I think this is a matchup that Georgia can easily exploit. I really do. You're gonna, and it's beneficial for Georgia to have the speed at linebacker, because Jaden Daniels is a very mobile quarterback. However, defensively, I think if you can contain and keep him in the pocket, it's going to be a long night, because that offensive line has gotten a lot better. But we saw some massive issues to start the season. And to me, I think if LSU's offense is doing just fine under Jaden Daniels finally, but a lot of it is predicated on him running. So if you can limit him to running the ball and keeping him in the pocket, it might get ugly. But I'm telling you right now, LSU defensively with B.J. Ojulari and Harold Perkins, by the way, if you're not familiar with it, that kid was playing a high school ball last year. That defense is good. That defense is very good. And I think you're going to see them get after it, try to get to Stetson Bennett, right? We're doing a way too early preview here. But if you take a look at it, I think Georgia's weapons are too much for LSU to overcome. What are y'all's thoughts on that? Well, from a way too early standpoint.
Well, I think, Perkins is one man, and yes, he has played fantastic as a freshman. And but if you look at it, their struggles against Arkansas without a KJ Jefferson, I just don't see them faring very well. As far as Jaden Daniels is a pretty good quarterback. He's mobile, but we faced Anthony Richardson from a running standpoint. We've faced the Auburn quarterback from a running standpoint, so I'm not worried about that. He's a pretty decent passer, but guess what? We've faced some really good passers too. So he's the total package. However, I just think that we're going to be able to bottle them up. And if they're struggling against Arkansas, I'm not worried by any stretch of the means.
It was cold that night, Willie.
Yeah.
Well, not Rude says not enough steam in the engine to keep it up for all 4 quarters. I mean, yes, I think
I'll
that's
just read you some things from their common opponent with us so far, Tennessee, which you hate doing sometimes. They only ran the ball for 55 yards, and 38 of those yards were Jaden Daniels himself. They did throw the ball for 300 yards, but we know against Tennessee that they don't care.
that's a participation trophy at this point.
LSU had only scored 7 points until the fourth quarter when they scored another touchdown or kicked 2 field goals. I'm not exactly sure. They scored another touchdown. They ran for a touchdown or threw for one or the other. But really, I mean, Tennessee limited Kayshon Boutte. He only had 6 catches for 33 yards and their 1 touchdown. At some point, they had 300 yards, but they threw the ball 45 times for 32 completions, averaging just around 6.5 yards of completion. That's you run the ball for 55 yards against us, and that's the recipe for disaster for
That's
you.
an ass whipping. What you saying?
It's not good typically.
So Rudes brings up another point. Kirby addressed that with our depth, and you can see how we don't have one star who does it all. Referring back to Juan's comment about Perkins, but a team that shares the load and performance, referring to Georgia, and I think that's what makes this team so scary, right? Last year you look at the defense, right? You have 5 first-rounders on that team. You have a plethora of NFL talent anyway. But I feel like this team is more it's scary because they're more versatile, if you see what I mean. Because they're smart enough and they're athletic enough to play a multitude of different things that are being asked. And it's just downright terrifying because if you think you can run on us, good luck. But we're able to sit there and shut down potent offenses, right, from a passing perspective. Able to come in and solo, rally to the ball, tackle, open space tackling. It's just scary, if you will, to think about it. Horrible. Sounds like my success rate hitting on 1.
Also, zero sacks against Tennessee. That's how many LSU had that day.
Yeah, that was. I mean, you have to be careful with this common opponent, even though I get it, because there seems to be this transitive property that comes along with it. If you're not careful and go down that rabbit hole. But
I'm not saying it's everything, but I'm just saying we had 7 sacks against that same offense.
Yeah. I'm all for it. Even when we were going to the Tennessee game and I'm sitting there looking at common opponents and I was like, there's not a single common opponent that Tennessee played that we wouldn't dominate. And then, of course, what does that translate to? Us completely dominating Tennessee.
I mean, you have a point. I just think that Georgia, before the season, I was really worried about this. But the way it stands now, there's really a thought in my head, and a good one at that, actually somewhat of a strong belief in my head that Georgia can repeat. I was very hesitant about that. I know where you're going. We take it a week at a time here.
We're a long way from talking about that.
No, I get a
long way from talking about that.
Again, I'm taking it a week at a time. Why? I'm getting told to.
National champions. Listen, I said at the beginning of the season last year, and sure enough, we were national champions. I just don't see anybody. I just don't see it. I really don't.
Back to common opponents real quick, and then y'all can have y'all's natty talk all y'all want to. Harold Perkins, if y'all watch that game, that tackle was getting helped by a running back. Yeah, say hello to Darnell Washington for me on that chip help block and see how good that's going for you.
I'm
gonna give Harold Perkins credit though, as a true freshman.
Oh, he's good. He's
like balled out.
No doubt.
And
probably
starts. It's going to
be a freshman All-American in the SEC.
Freshman of the year.
Yeah. You have to think he's freshman All-American. There's no question.
Darnell, good luck.
Yeah, Darnell with it. I don't even know. They call it a chip block. My man gave him the whole damn bag. All right, a whole bag of chips. Just bow. He just decimates people, man. He's so
I've
big.
seen Darnell do mean things to better players.
That's scary to hear that. That sounds like a prison story. That's, but no. So let's do this. Let's transition away from LSU. We've got some time to talk about that, which obviously we will do that on our doing that of the week of the SEC championship game. But now, speaking of LSU, I'm sure they're probably going to move up in the rankings Tuesday night. But before we do that, welcome to the updated, never wrong, right? This is our DGD CFP poll, updated poll here. Listen, the top four did not change, okay? Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, TCU. You can at me all you want to. Ohio State, it's right now, from this point, from the start of the season to this point, I think Michigan is the more complete team. However, we're about to find out next week, folks, who the real one is. With that being said, our top four did not change. But after that, all hell broke loose. It's that simple. All hell broke loose. Looking at it right here, 5 through 11, Tennessee at number 5, LSU slides up to number 6, USC, the Trojans, number 7. Bama takes a step up, winning it. Ole Miss, even if it was ugly, to number 8. Utah slides up to number 9. Oregon falling back to number 10 after that loss to UW. And then at 11, you have Penn State. Listen, Penn State at 11. People might want to give some grief to Penn State, but Penn State's 2 losses were to Ohio State and Michigan. Yes. What's that?
Me, I would like to give them grief because they are terrible, and that is all I have to say about that.
Damn. Before we go, Kobe, is Diet Coke the secret to Swolders?
Yes.
Why you gonna give your damn secrets away, man?
Like Simpson, man. Come on, man. You can't give the secrets away.
Swolders and 4 years of Coach Sinclair. That
Rudes. I saw him in person, and I can confirm that. You definitely look like Cam Rising. I saw him this weekend.
So yeah. Rudes equals Cam Rising.
Yes.
Copy that. That's a noted graphic coming up soon, if possible. We'll see what happens. But listen, moving on. 12 through 18, UNC at number 12. UNC there could be a chance that UNC. Speaking of UNC, they have a date in Charlotte with Clemson. That ACC title game is confirmed, and that's going to be an interesting one. So I have UNC at 12, and then Clemson at 13. 14, Ole Miss slides down after the loss to Alabama. Notre Dame taking a huge jump up to 15. Florida State making somewhat of the same, moving to 16. UCLA, after that loss to Arizona, Jaden DeLar just took over that game. UCLA at 17, and then Kansas State at 18. This is where it gets interesting because this is where like I said, all hell broke loose. Yeah, Pac-12 cannibalized itself. It was just wild. It really was.
And I would say don't be surprised, tomorrow night if you see UNC and Clemson higher. The committee definitely, we've seen historically, is going to give the ACC champion, if they are a one-loss team, at least a chance. And I just think that's that, but they are. Whether it's right or whether it's wrong, if you're 12-1 and the ACC champ, expect one of the two of them to be floating around the top 6.
I'll tell you this right now, and I think it's going to happen because USC has UCLA this week, which is going to be a rivalry game. They've got Notre Dame. If they win that and they win the Pac-12, USC will be in it. They'll be team number 4. This is how it's going to play out. And you've heard it here first. It's going to be Georgia, Michigan. Then it's going to be Tennessee, and then it's going to be USC.
Juan, let's do this before we talk about that.
TCU.
Hold on, guys. Let's do this.
TCU's they're gonna lose. They'll end up
Let's do this
before the championship game, or are you calling like championship game?
After. TCU always ends up doing some type of silly blunder that's gonna mess them up.
Let's do this. Let's finish off the rankings and let's have a theoretical discussion on these four. So to round out the top 25, UCF at 19, Washington at 20, NC State 21, Cincinnati at 22, Coastal Carolina at 23, Oregon State at 24, and Texas at 25. That is the DGDCFP poll. But now we lead to a quick debate and we can each talk about this. Who are your four? Juan, you said it, just reiterate it again to start it back off. But who are your four? And we'll give a brief, quick answer on why.
Yeah, it's going to be Georgia. It'll be Michigan. It'll be Tennessee, and then it'll be USC. USC, I think if they go through and if they win the Pac-12, they're going to have more ranked wins. They're going to have beaten Washington. They'll have beaten Oregon. They'll have beaten Notre Dame at the end of the season, which is going to be huge. UCLA is a pretty good team. So I just see them, and not to mention just the glam of having a USC playing a Georgia is just. I mean, who doesn't want to see that? I mean, if you sit there and say, "Hey, TCU is going to play Georgia," you're going to be like, But a USC to have Tennessee versus a Michigan, and then a Georgia versus USC, that's going to be a Final Four that people would go above and beyond to see. Nobody wants to see Clemson. Nobody wants to see UNC, play though. It's just not there. And if you compare the Pac-12 versus the ACC this year, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Kobe, who's your four at this point? And what we're going to do, folks, we're going to talk our top four each Monday until it really matters. Okay. But starting now, Kobe, if you had to choose right now, what are your four for the playoffs?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the biggest difference will be just if TCU has a blunder or not. I mean, I think right now we can all agree that the one-loss Pac-12 champions in, the SEC championship winner, Georgia, will be in. Winner of Michigan, Ohio State has the clear route to win the Big Ten. I mean, if you look at the other side of the Big Ten, it could be the worst conference, like sub-conference.
Everybody's like 4-3. It's so bad.
They're like all fighting to see
Purdue could be playing in the Big Ten championship. Purdue.
So, I think that Michigan, Ohio State winner is in. I think we all think it'll be Michigan. I think we think they're the better overall team this year. I can't shake the fact that Clemson or UNC, one or the other, would be 12-1. I know that they're both not good, but I just know that they're gonna want to see conference champions. They just historically. I'm just talking like as far as the playoff has gone historically, they love conference champions. And so I think this ranking, where UNC and Clemson are in this ranking, or like maybe next ranking, will really start kind of picking, do you see a route of Clemson or them winning out? Can they climb? Is there enough meat on the bone to climb high enough? And
as far as the ACC,
the Notre Dame loss is going to hurt. It's going to hurt Clemson bad.
I don't care if they're ranked or not.
They'll look at USC probably beat the brakes off of Notre Dame, and then you got the brakes beat off of you by Clemson. So,
and fun fact, Notre Dame beat both of them, which is crazy. Notre Dame beat UNC and Notre Dame beat Clemson. So both of their one loss is both to Notre Dame.
That's terrible.
I'm going to make my prediction right here. I want to preface this by saying congratulations to TCU so far. I hope you win out, right? Because I don't want Tennessee in this bitch. I don't, because fuck the Vols. That's why. But hear me out. My prediction is this. You have to play somebody again, and I feel like you might have TCU Kansas State. Making that prediction now, right? We don't know yet, but TCU and probably Kansas State maybe. But if TCU wins out, it's going to be, in my opinion, Georgia. I think Michigan, but the winner of the Michigan Ohio State game, obviously, and then TCU. Honestly, I think USC can do this, but it's going to be difficult. If they win out, they win. They're in the playoffs. If
I guess I think that USC is the no-brainer in the playoffs because their one loss is a 1-point loss. I mean, it's not like they got blown out. I mean,
yeah. So I mean, give me USC. I think they can handle it. It's going to be interesting though because once they come against the defense, they can somewhat slow them down. That's where it gets very tricky with USC because their defense has gotten better, but it's still nowhere near it needs to be to really make waves in the playoffs.
They are going to get punished. I mean, absolutely punished. And I know that they've got Jordan Addison, who's like a Biletnikoff winner, and they've got Caleb Williams and all that other kind of stuff. But if they are the number 14 and they play Georgia, they are going to get punished. And I think everybody wants to see that.
I watched that offensive line. That offensive line is making Caleb Williams do a lot of scrambling when he don't want to. And he's going out there and making some crazy.
If we're being honest, besides Ohio State, I think, and Alabama in 2017, what 4 seed has not just gotten punished? Absolutely. I mean, it seems like every year the 4 seed just gets absolutely wrecked. Yeah. And we all love it.
I mean, God, we saw Notre Dame get demolished, Oklahoma get demolished. Like,
yeah. But I'm a little bit different from you, Robert. You know, I like complete dominant championships, and I'd love to see Tennessee again. I really.
That was where I was getting to. I was going to say that
second time was going to be even worse.
So, yeah. So my thought was this: like, if TCU wins out, I think you obviously give them the spot, and if USC wins out, you give them the 4 spot. But do we really think TCU? We have to give some credit to TCU because they have proved a lot of people wrong. But if they were to go down, Tennessee will be that 4 spot or 3 spot for that matter. And I think USC could still be that 4 spot. Because if we saw 13 million people on a regular season game, imagine if Tennessee beats the winner of the Michigan-Ohio State game and then goes to play if Georgia and have a rematch of that game in LA. It would be stupid. It'd be stupid. But it's dependent. Give me this though. Here's the situation. My 4 for right now: Georgia. I think Ohio State right now. So Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, USC is going to be the 4. And boy, will that be fun. That will be fun. Yeah. And Ruse brings up an excellent point. It's hard to beat a team twice, right? Absolutely it is. So you expect Tennessee to be ready next time. And listen, they have not shut up. Tennessee fans have not shut up about this. Oh, catch us on a neutral site. Be careful what you wish for. I'm just letting y'all know that right now. Be careful what you wish for. Because, yes, we had you at home, but we literally let off the gas and dominated that game still.
I mean, if you sit there and think about it, they had a couple of false start penalties they probably couldn't hear. Do you really think that's what made the difference? Do you think if you take away those false starts and then you also, take away, the noise, do you think that would have helped them? No, I don't think so.
Well, my thing is they still are one of the most highly penalized teams in all of college football. You take away the false starts, yes or no. They didn't have a single holding penalty against all night. All night. I mean, that's just that's just hard to imagine that you went out and you blocked a perfect game against Georgia. But I'll catch y'all. I'm gonna roll. Good to see everybody. See everybody Wednesday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. This will be our last comment here. Rude says neutral site. Catch us in a back alley. Try Jesus, not them dogs, because we throw hands. Listen, if in the instance Georgia and Tennessee have a rematch, listen, Kirby won't be so generous.
Nope.
He will not take the ball out of Stetson's hand. If you go back on that game, Georgia dominated that first half, and all it took was for the rain to come for Kirby to say, all right, let's just run the ball down their throats because they're not stopping it enough, and sit there and kill 8 minutes off a damn clock. It's that simple. But those are our predictions for the top four or for the final four in regards to the playoff as it stands right now. Obviously, these are subject to change, so keep that in mind. You've got our game balls. We've got the in-depth review. The SEC championship game is set. Getting ready to take on them Bayou Bengals. Hey, don't act like we forgot. We got receipts still. This 2019. It's revenge season. Simple as that.
Yes,
With that being said, have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll catch y'all back here Wednesday. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.